It's in how you present it. If you come off like you're unwilling to do anything
Right.
outside of the bare minimum, sure, you're not going to get a whole lot of grace there. But if you present it in a way to where it's like, I have all of this work, it's presenting a case essentially. You're saying,
Mhm.
I have all of this on my plate. This is what I'm doing. You're clear and transparent in what the issue is, and say, I will take this thing on, or I will adjust this boundary, but something else has to give. Leading Ain't Easy, the show that cuts through the noise and gets real about leadership. I'm Ryan Calkins, Marine Corps veteran and founder of Reframe and Rise, and I'm here with my good friend and fellow leader, Ernie Epley, founder of Bus Pro Network, as we unpack the highs, lows, and hard-earned lessons of what it actually takes to lead with character in today's world. It's not another highlight reel or fluffy leadership pep talk. We're talking about the stuff most people don't, the doubt, the pressure, the people problems, the pivots, and the personal growth that it demands. Because the truth is, leadership looks good on paper, but in real life, leading ain't easy. Welcome back to Leading Ain't Easy. Today we wanted to focus on, I had a client recently who brought up struggling to not respond to emails or things off the clock. And Ernie and I were talking, and we really wanted to focus on setting boundaries with your boss, and the idea that really, if you don't set boundaries, somebody else will, and it is usually not in your favor. So we really wanted to kind of focus on our experiences with boundary setting and ways that we changed our own approach to boundary setting as we progress through our career.
One thing that comes to mind with this title is how how do you do this without appearing like you're being lazy or telling your boss to back off, right? Like, most people don't struggle because they don't work hard in this area, right? I think most people that end up in these positions of leadership, whether or not they have the title there, is they're there because they're high achievers, right? They're high producing individuals, and most of the struggle, at least for me in this area, has come when I just don't know how to tell people no. I want to please everyone. I want to be everything for everyone, and the lack of setting boundaries can ultimately be detrimental because it eventually leads to burnout. You know, so how do we set that boundary respectfully? Like, I know gave the example of one of your clients not answering emails after hours. For me, like, I would panic if I didn't have access to my emails outside of work hours, and I don't know that that's healthy. Probably isn't, but I feel like I want to at least have the heads up, right? And I don't necessarily mean that I have to respond, but sometimes I do want to respond in the moment because I think, oh shit, I'm going to forget this if I don't address it right now, or whatever the case might be.
No,
Um,
and you're right. I mean, it is like you like to have the sense of comfort in knowing what's going on. So it's more not feeling compelled to immediately respond, because say, you go home, you don't want to check emails at the end of the day, right? Like at 6 p.m. or whatever time you're done. But then you start to respond at 6, and then you get an email at 7 and you respond to it. And then you're getting an email at 9 and you respond to it. And it's like every single time that you engage, you're saying, my personal time doesn't matter. Like, I'm going to work whenever I'm approached. And again, like we mentioned in previous episodes, we're not talking about like when shit hits the fan, or you have,
right.
you screwed something up and now you're correcting it. And there are those nights where you have long hours, or you do work an occasional weekend. But what I'm talking about with this particular topic is your regular day to day, and it's not even saying, okay, I'm done at 4 p.m. Do not contact me. I mean, you're never going to draw the line like that, but it's more engaging with your boss. Like, even if it's just I'm much more refreshed in the morning, I'll ruminate, whatever, come back tomorrow, da 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 da. But it's being able to set healthy boundaries at work that really gives you your time away because it is so easy to just stay in it, you know?
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but I've ran the gambit with bosses, especially the last 10 years of my career, where I've had bosses where there is zero expectation for you to answer the phone or return an email after hours. And then I've had bosses who send out an email and about 30 minutes later, like, hey, did you see that email? And it isn't a, hey, I just wanted to make sure you got it. No, it was a, did you see that email? I need you to respond, you know? So, what in the example of the one who is actively seeking a response in the after hours or, you know, on the weekend, it got to the point where I was beyond burnt out because again, I wanted to please, I wanted to be a good employee. I wanted to be Ernie on the spot, you know, in that situation. And then when I finally, my body actually is what told me, like, look, this is it. You know, I had a health episode, which wasn't a serious health episode, but I mean, anytime your health is directly affected by your job, it is serious.
Mhm.
I just kind of downplayed it because I'm like, yeah, it's fine, you know. But you know, I had to make a decision at that point to approach my boss and say, hey, look, I need some time to recharge. Right.
Mhm.
And I was terrified, man. I was scared of, oh, they're gonna fire me. That, you know, man, surprisingly enough, he's like, oh yeah, no worries. That's all
Like, I
good,
was
you know,
answering
and
emails from my hospital bed.
not quite, but I mean, I probably would have if I was in the hospital. I wasn't in the hospital, but yeah, like I was actually surprising of, for me, it was like a real no shit moment, right? Like, oh, I could have done this months ago, just asked him, you know, hey, can I get back to you in the morning? Or, you know, once in a while, is it okay for me to turn this off? You know, and he was such a high producing individual and had been, you know, redlining for years. Some people, man, they could do that. I'm not one of those folks. You know, I need, you know, once in a while to be able to shut this shit off and continue on. But what was amazing to me, what I'm saying is, don't be afraid to respectfully approach that topic. I'm not saying that your boss or your environment's going to be similar to what or your experience is going to be similar to what I had, but I was actually surprised to be like, oh, wow, I could have done this a long time ago. You
Yeah.
know,
Well, it's
it,
also your personal approach, because for me
right.
growing up, like, the mindset was always, maybe it's a generational thing, I don't know, but it was always like, do what you can. Your boss asks you, you're there. So you're always
Yeah.
responding, you're always being
Yep.
there. Need a volunteer? Boom, I'm there. And it got to the, it's just so easy to where the more it encroaches and you're just like, yes, yes, I can do it, give it to me. And then you're working late nights and you're working weekends. And half the time, people don't even know that you're doing it, and you're spending all this extra time, especially as a salaried employee, you are, you know,
Yeah.
you're diminishing your pay per hour. And it's,
Yes.
it's not like you get overtime.
Right.
But I don't know, like, there was a point in my career where this lady, lady, she's like 10 years younger than me, but anyways, she would, like, respond and say, I don't typically respond after 6 a.m., but I'll respond as soon as I get in the morning. I was like, oh, the balls on this chick, like, well, she's gonna get fired, and she didn't. And it was just this thing where I'm like, wow, you can do that. So
Right.
then, I started to do it, and the more consistent you become, the more they respect it and they anticipate, okay, well, he'll tackle it first thing in the morning, nothing's going to change. I mean, obviously the tone of the email, if it says, respond now, like,
Right.
something is going on. But
Yeah.
for general ones, and the other thing that I had this boss when I was at Waste Management, and we were sitting at a happy hour because we were out on site, and I see him typing up an email and, you know, sends it or whatever, but it doesn't go out. And I'm like, I just saw you send an email. He's like, oh yeah, I set it on a future response, so it looks like I'm busy. And I'm like, son of a bitch. But
Yeah.
not knowing that that was the thing, it became a tool to where, like you said, when you check an email in the middle of the night, you don't want to forget it. Type it up and send it, but have it, go first thing in the morning. So it's
Yeah.
at like
Schedule some.
6 a.m., 7 a.m., whatever time. So it wasn't ignored, but at the same time, you're also respecting your boundaries in the sense that, yes, you responded, but you're not engaging in potential back and forth at a time where you're off the clock. And it's just kind of learning these tools and things that really help to keep the boundaries going, because like I said, you give a little bit, they'll take a little bit, and the more you give, the more they take. And it's not even necessarily a I got you thing, I'm going to rope you in and screw you, things like
Yeah.
that, but it's just you don't even think about it, and you can like I used to do, to where you can, I hate to say like become a victim or anything like that, but
Mhm.
it's more the more that you give of yourself, the less, you have of your time away from work. So you're doing all this at the expense of yourself, I guess, is what I'm getting at.
No, no, it's and you bring up a great point because I've always told folks who are new to this industry or new to management who come to me seeking advice on this very thing is, "Hey, how long has that district been around? Oh, since 1903? Yeah, they've been around since 1903, and they're gonna be around probably till the year 2103, right? They're long before you got there, long after you leave. And guess what? If you were to drop dead tomorrow, God forbid, but if you were to drop dead tomorrow, they're gonna post your position within a couple of
Yeah.
weeks. So really think about that. Not to say that you're gonna fuck off work and not do, your job or anything, but at the same time know that, hey, I'm not married to this job. Like, this is part of me, this is a very big part of me. I enjoy what I do, I'm very fulfilled by what I do, I'm very dedicated. I put my heart and soul into this. That's all okay, right? But setting a boundary, even to the, maybe not a boss, but to the institution itself or the company itself, just realize, even if it's your company that you started, like, it's not gonna do you or anybody a lick of good if you keel over for a heart attack from a heart attack tomorrow, you know?
Dude, I I worked at this small company before where we had our Christmas weekend dinner thing gathering, and there was a lady that we had hired a few months prior, and she sent an email over the weekend basically why she couldn't come in, that she was trying to get up to speed on everything, and there was a lot, to do, but there were a couple of emails and each one was a little off, and then she didn't come to work on Monday and didn't come to work on Tuesday. And the HR lady was like, "Oh, I don't know if we're gonna have to put job abandonment or whatever," and like she was already somebody they were considering letting go, and she she had died from
Oh
something.
my god.
Yeah, and the CEO, the CEO came in and he leaned into me and he's like, "Well, now we don't have to fire her." And I was like, "Dude,
Jesus Christ,
I
dude.
know." I was
What
like,
the
"Oh
hell?
my god." Like, dude.
Jesus. You're right. How was setting boundaries with that guy?
He he was a really
Like a real
charismatic
pleasurable
and,
dude.
and personable guy, but he was also like a non-boundary guy. He was one of those guys where it's
Okay.
like sends an email and then the 30 minutes later sends you a text. Hey, did you see my email? Like he demanded a lot, but it was also like, Jesus.
Uh, no, one thing I did want to mention along those same lines is, um, uh, regarding your dedication and not being married to the place, just especially salaried employees, you have to find the best balance that works for you. Because as I mentioned earlier, you might be one of these people that could, go at all times, be constantly redlined and be totally fine. But you also have to consider, like, what is that doing to your family? Like, what is that doing to those who depend on you outside of your professional life? I know that a lot of people don't always think about that, or maybe they don't have time to think about it because they're so wrapped up in their professional life. But it's not always about setting boundaries just for you and your own personal health and mental clarity. It's also about those who depend on you and being available and being in the moment for them. I see I have a couple friends that are in business where for themselves, and we'll be at, like, for example, as at one of their kids' birthday parties, and this dude, I had to take over the barbecuing duty, which sucked because I not only was there to hang out, I didn't want to barbecue, but and also I suck at barbecue. Beyond hamburgers and hot dogs, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Um, so, but he just the whole party went on. He wasn't present for his own kid. He was just running his business, and I get it. You have deadlines, you have customer like I understand if this doesn't get done, it might not get done at all and might cost you, but man, you gotta take that into consideration. What are you because you're sacrificing something, whether it's time with your loved ones or it's time for yourself, really consider those boundaries as well. In addition to maybe a boss or whatever the case might be.
Well, you mentioned the high performers piece too, and it's one thing. I think high performers can struggle more than others because you are so used to doing so much and giving so much, and it just like you mentioned the kind of the emotional piece and your personal
Mhm.
life and kind of that being encroached on. And I don't know, it gets to a point to where like you have to have a realization. Is it, are you being approached in that go-to person because you're the most effective, or is it because you always make yourself available, so you're kind of opening yourself up to maybe unintentionally be taken advantage of? Because it's like, oh well, this other person could do a better job, but they're off the clock at 6. I know Ernie will respond and do it. So it's just, I don't know. Like you said, there's a fine balance between being readily available and protecting yourself in your time away. Because I mean, shit, what we work 60, well, the way we're headed, 85 years of our life. But
Jeez, right?
I mean, time is it's the one resource we never get back, right? And it's the older you get, the less time you have, obviously. And I mean, how do you want to spend it? You want to look back and say, yeah, I gave this company 60 something years. I worked 10, 12, 14-hour days, or you want to say, yeah, I had some time to myself and I loved life, and work was just a thing I did at work.
Yeah, and so 100%, man. My biggest fear is looking back. I've always said this to folks, like, I'm not gonna be on my deathbed and think, "Oh, man, I wish I hadn't taken off that day to go camping." Right? It's like, that's not gonna happen. I wanna really live in the moment, and, um, so now I wanna kinda shift gears here and talk to the leaders in the room, those of us who have a team that we work with every day that are depending on us to lead them. You could be the most well-intentioned uh, boss out there, but still have unrealistic expectations without even realizing it. I know this because I've done this. I consider myself to be an empathetic leader. I consider myself to be someone who isn't a hard ass unless I have to be, right? Like there's all we can get into that at another day in time, but um, there's still times that I have to check myself because I lean really heavily, or I find myself leaning really heavily on the heavy hitter. I call them my heavy hitters, right? The ones who I can give 15 tasks and within 4 hours, all of them are done. And then they've taken on the initiative to do another 15, right? Um, not being sensitive to their needs and not being sensitive to like, oh, I'm unintentionally burning this employee out, this team member out. Like I need to the old adage of these sports guys who you got to protect them from themselves because they'll go out there with a broken neck and a broken foot and still want to play ball, right? But you got to at some point say, look, no, you got to stop. Um, so just be aware of what your actions are doing, even though you need the work done and John Flanagan's going to say yes every single time. Sometimes you got to protect John from John and say, hey,
It's
bud,
it's
you know
hard to
what?
do because you could be
Yeah.
burning out yourself and not realize it until it's too late. And trying to do it for yourself and observe what's going on with others. And most people are proud and don't want to admit that they're headed down a path that is not sustainable and not good for their health. It I don't it's hard sometimes.
Yeah, and for those of those of my fellow directors of transportations out there, those of a, we all know, I've said this before on this podcast, that our heavy months are in the fall when school starts up and when school's ending and summer school starting up, right? Those are usually the heat moments, the hotter moments, because at any point in time, this gig can just and head off. Like I was just talking to you before the show started about this week I'm having. I didn't anticipate a busy week. You know, Sunday going into Monday, I didn't anticipate that I would be so, because my calendar looked okay. There was a few appointments here, a few appointments there, but then here we are, and I'm hammered, right? I'm just buried with work. And so I understand that there are times outside of those high points, but for the most part, the peaks of busy times are around start of school, summer school, all that good stuff. So during those times, I encourage everybody, remind your staff, hey, we're only here for the time we're here. I obviously can't compel you to do overtime, but the team that I've built certainly at my place of employment, they're there 10, 12 hours a day with no question. Like, they don't care, right? I don't have to beg them for work. A lot of them are the heavy hitters, right? And so at the end of those days, they'll come to me like, oh man, like we just feel like we didn't do anything, right? Or they're stressed out about, oh, I didn't get all 25 kids routed that came in 30 minutes ago. And I have to remind them, hey, look, just do what you can in your 8 hours that you're here, or 10 hours if you want to stay overtime. Like, I appreciate it, right? Do what you can in that time frame. The rest of it's just going to have to work itself out. And being a good leader, right? What I think is a good leader is then when those calls do come in, right? From, hey, how come my kid's not routed? I turned in my application 5 minutes ago. Well, I'll take the brunt of that on, because then that's my job to shield them from that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I guess I started this whole thing just to remind leaders, like, hey, be good to your folks, man, because they'll run through a brick wall for you. You know, the more you give them that power, or give them that encouragement, saying, hey, I appreciate what I got today. Go home, give it a rest, have a glass of wine if you don't drink, or whatever, watch your reality shows or whatever you want to do. Just unplug and then come back tomorrow and we'll try again.
So as a leader and as a manager, and being somebody in a position to provide that frame of reference for others, I mean, it's much easier for me to have an employee and say, when you go home, please don't respond. If I send you an email, respond in the morning, whatever it is. It's more challenging when you are the one going out and trying to set a boundary without making it sound like an ultimatum, or drawing your foot in the sand and saying, I don't respond to emails after 6, so I'll talk to you in the morning, chief, whatever. Um, at least for me, it's more difficult when it comes to asking for that for myself than it is me kind of helping to establish the boundary for people that I'm working with, and helping them come up. And I don't know, it's just a lot easier to provide kind of that foundational piece where, as they're coming up, they already have that mindset of establishing boundaries because they've been operating in it. And it was more difficult for me, like I said, coming from the mindset of, I'll be available, I'll be that Johnny on the spot, I'll do whatever you need to do. And I had a boss test me once, and
Oh,
yeah, dude, I was on
how'd that
vacation, and
go?
he's like, don't respond to emails while you're gone. I'm like, oh, okay,
All right, you say that.
and then he sent me an email, and
I
I
need your
responded
response.
to it. Well, I responded, and he sent me
Uh,
a message back. He's like, hey, what did I say? Stay off your laptop. I'm like, all right, you're right. You're right. But then
good
there was
boss,
one
man.
spot, the time where I was on my honeymoon, and I broke my own rule, because it's the only time that I've broken my own rule in like the last 10 years. But um I took my laptop with me, and I felt bad because I was the project manager on this particular piece where I was the subject matter expert, and I had two
Mhm.
analysts that I put in a position to carry it while I was gone. But I knew that there were some things that they weren't going to be handled or be able to take care of without some guidance or insight. And I tried to share some of the knowledge with other project managers who were supposed to cover in your absence. But the last time I tried that and passed off my work that was supposed to get done while I was gone, I came back and all of my stuff was still sitting there. So Basically, I put myself out there and told them, I trust you guys to take it forward. I'll be there if you need me. Of
Mhm,
course, something
mhm.
came up and they called and I did, like a 2 hour web conference, video conference with them. But I mean, it was okay because they knew that I was there for them and they were doing what they could to help me. So it's one time that I, you know, said, all right, I'll be flexible and I'll go against my own boundaries. But it's just one of those things that you don't want to become the norm.
No, 100%, and you reminded me of something that happened to me where I left for vacation and, well, let me back up a little bit. This past winter break that we were on was the first time in 10 years where I truly did not check my email. And
Congratulations.
here's why. For the first in my early career, it wasn't winter break, it was a vacation, and like you, I said, "Hey, here's to the replacement or not replacement, but someone else on the team. Here are some projects that are on the burner. This is, where they're at. This is the answer to what the right. Just gave them the game plan. I came back, and unlike you, they did try to help out. I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm just shitting on them, but they fucked it up. It was bad, and it took more time. Had I just left it alone and came back and picked up where I left off, instead I spent double the time unfucking what they fucked,
Oh
and
man,
it
that's the
was just
worst.
it was so bad. And I don't want to, I was appreciative because they took on my work on top of theirs, so I was just like, yeah, I'll fix it. You know what I'm saying? It's just, but yeah, to that. So shifting gears here, one of the comments that we got on one of our posts, I don't remember if it was on YouTube or Instagram, but um, there was this sentiment of I'm a good employee and I feel like I'm just getting punished with more work, right? I think that leads into some advice to that I would have, because what you were saying earlier about it's hard not to keep feeding your heavy hitters, right? You want them to keep going, but that's not fair to them. You're going to burn them out. You have to, as a leader, take action, and the action is going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be to the underperforming side of your team, and those conversations are not comfortable. But as leader, it is your responsibility to hold them accountable, saying, hey, when you're here, when John Flanagan is gone, Nikhil, buddy, the production of this department just goes to the toilet. What's going on? And maybe you don't say it like that. Maybe ask ChatGPT how to how to approach this professionally and without hurting Nikhil's feelings. But you have to, the point is you have to manage that, right? That's your job as leader, is to protect your heavy hitters and to protect your product and your the outcome of what you're trying to do in your particular industry.
Yeah, no, I feel like accountability could be an entire show on its own.
Oh,
That's
oh, that's tough because
accountability can be very tough.
yeah, because some people, man, like, oh man, I don't want to get into it. Maybe we just save it until that show. But what I was gonna say is, like, man, some people feel like, and maybe they are doing a good job in their mind, right? They're just misdirected or misguided, and you come with the accountability piece, and they're like, "The hell? What do you mean accountable? I'm doing my, it's."
Yeah, I have a story for that when we do get to that.
Okay,
But
awesome.
yeah, I'll write down a note and we'll come back to accountability because I got a lot to say there. But I think for the employee, the hardworking employees that uh kind of unintentionally get taken advantage of, there's an opportunity there to help set a boundary as well. And it's not just saying I'm not going to take any more work. Like you never want to approach it like I'm not going to do this. It's
Mm,
more,
yeah.
I have this work that I'm working on right now. If you want me to switch to that, I can, but then this isn't going to get done. Or how do you want me to proceed? And then put it back on the manager. It's like, okay, well, I may need more help, or maybe there's a way that we can distribute this other work that I've got so I can focus on this new project. And it's really trying to maintain your boundaries, but do it in a tactful and political way to where you're not just saying, No, I'm not going to do that. I have enough work.
I got a question for you. When is the problem the boundary, and when is it the environment?
I think for me, the boundary has been the boundary when I am the one, like, nobody's forcing me to do the work or anything else, and I'm saying in my head, "I don't wanna work after 6," but I continue to put myself out there, and I'm like, I move my boundary constantly to where it's not consistent, and I use the off work hours because it's the easiest boundary, but
Right.
like I
Right.
said, taking on more work or whatever it is, if you're constantly like, "Yeah, I'll do it, I'll do it, I'll do it, I'll do it," why wouldn't they keep coming back to you? You continue to take it. But I think the environment is the problem when the expectation is that you will be available 24 hours a day. And if you don't do it, it becomes a negative or a part of performance that gets judged in a negative way. Um, at least that's how I interpret environment versus the boundary. I think boundary is
Mhm.
self, and then the environment is obviously everything else, and enforcing that type of mindset, I guess, upon you versus you potentially
Gotcha.
screwing yourself.
When you said we've been using the example, and we have been using the example of boundaries being the our availability, outside work hours. Another boundary that comes to mind that is, I think it's much more vague in the sense that there is no one size fits all solution that's going to have a desired outcome. And what I mean by that is the respect boundary. Man, I've like I said, I've worked for some real hard asses, man,
Mhm,
and just taken it, and some one of them, I don't care, he's long gone. He was a dude, and he was probably about 5 foot even. You know where I'm going with this. I'm six
mhm.
foot five, and he made it a point to call my big ass out every single meeting we had, and it wasn't like a
My
call
man.
out like bro, there were some times I'd be like, you little mother. If I met you on the street, boy, you know what I mean? Like, I'd mop the sidewalk with your stupid fucking hair, but because he had this big anyway. Um, so it there might be times where you may feel disrespected, and that again, that's a whole different topic as well, because you might not be being disrespected. Maybe they're just calling you out on some BS that you deserve to be called out on. Now the manner, the way it's framed really does matter. I've people who have, again, that I've talked to about work, had conversations similar to this, saying like, who does that MFR think he is talking to me like this? And whenever I've gotten, dove deeper into the, like, well, how did he say it? What did he say? Right. And if it truly was disrespectful, and then I would be like, hey, you're within your right as an employee. You work in the state of California. You work in the US, hell. You have rights. Like that is not okay for him or her or them to speak to you in that manner. You stand up for yourself. You like, don't let them bully you. Like that's not okay. So there's a way to stand up for yourself, a way to stand up against a bullying boss in a manner that you're going to be protected by law, and that just demands that respect.
Well, I mean, if you're getting into bullying, that's kind of a, I don't know if it's a different subject matter. I
Yeah.
mean, I think that like you said, communication is key because you have to be clear in the boundary setting because you don't
Hmm.
want your boss to be resentful. Like, oh, I went to Ernie and he's like, I'm off the clock, Jack. But it's, I don't know. You need to be very careful because you don't want to put yourself in a position where you are resented or now you are being treated
Yeah.
in a different way or you're not getting promoted because you're not willing to go above and beyond, which I get, but at the same
Yeah.
time, there is a way, like I said before, it's in how you present it. If you come off like you're unwilling to do anything
Right.
outside of the bare minimum, sure, you're not going to get a whole lot of grace there. But if you present it in a way to where it's like, I have all of this work, it's presenting a case essentially. You're saying,
Mhm.
I have all of this on my plate. This is what I'm doing. You're clear and transparent in what the issue is, and say, I will take this thing on, or I will adjust this boundary, but something else has to give. And then it's being consistent in that messaging. I think the earlier you can set those, and the more respectful and firm you are in establishing boundaries, the more effective the boundary will be, and the better received it will be.
Yeah, those are great insights, man. Like to the early communication, being respectful and firm, do not necessarily equal disrespect or create conflict. I mean, they can, but that doesn't necessarily mean they that they will. And clarifying that expectation of what that boundary is early, man, that's so key. Um, and it also teaches them how to treat you, right? Like I've had that as a boss, like with team members that I've had, where I've had to learn how, like, oh, this is how I approach this person. I get more uh the workflow is easier, the chemistry's better when I approach them this way, right? And I've learned through their own boundary setting with me, and it was never, it doesn't have to be negative, it wasn't negative, but just learning and leading with empathy and leading with that sensitivity to knowing, like, hey, this is how I need to communicate with this person to get the most out of us all
So
as
let
a
me ask you a
team.
question. I've been
Okay.
in a situation. So as a leader, I encourage boundary setting and everything else
Hmm.
by employees, right? But when you have a situation where shit has hit the fan, and you're trying to get out to the only person that has that wealth of knowledge, or whatever, they have their filing, and you're like, I need this, and an hour goes by, and you're like, I really need this, like, I'm stuck at the office, da 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 da, and all this stuff is like continuing to happen, and they're not responding. And how do you keep from getting frustrated? Because I've been there, and I'm like,
Mm.
dude, would you just answer your phone? I need you. And it's like, oh, I'm sorry, I was grocery shopping, whatever. And it's like, oh, you're killing me.
This is resetting the expectation in your own place, right? I've been there too, where I'm like, fuck, I got this held up because I don't have this and then this is the one that's not responding, right? Like you triggered me all over again. I'm getting angry because it's like I've been
I mean, it's
there.
real though,
It is. It is. I mean, resetting that expectation, going back to whether it's someone else, an individual, or whether it's a project, right? Going back to that and just like, hey, if it's a person, picking up the phone and calling them, hey, I know you're waiting on me for this, however, where it's bottlenecked, and where it's bottlenecked is with someone who's off right now, and I got to respect their time, and hopefully they understand, hopefully it's not going to cost you hundreds or thousands or millions of dollars.
So my issue was, there was a
Mm.
pending city council meeting, which I know that you've had to deal with as well.
Oh
And
yeah,
those
those are
don't
great.
move. Like, when you're stuck on that, and you're like, I need this shit now. Like, it becomes a huge red
Yeah.
flag, to where it's like, you have that realization that, okay, well, if this person died, I don't know where that info is,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
I mean, there's opportunities that present themselves to where you want to respect the boundaries that you've helped to
Mhm.
facilitate and create. But there can also be major things to where it's like, okay, well, there needs to be a process in place where I have a backup on this role with this assignment, or I at the very least need to know this person's filing system. And it led to a lot of operational changes, for me, as these things occurred, because the bottleneck essentially ended up being me, because I'm
Mhm.
responsible for all of these people in this department. And you lose sight of, or not even sight, you just don't think about kind of the day to day, because it's so routine, that until something happens that forces change, it's like you're not thinking
Mhm.
about different ways that you can improve things, until it's necessary.
Right, it's that old adage, "You don't know what you don't know." and then when you find out, it's a real like, oh fuck, I'm finding out moment. No, I when you man, I now I have the tools to, I feel like, better approach that, especially where I'm at right now with our, we'll just say city council or board of education or whatever. Um, man, honestly, a lot of they're more understanding than you would give them credit for. Like they just have to accept that answer that, hey, this is something that's beyond my control. I try to get this data again. This is something that's, I will follow up with you after this meeting with whatever question or whatever you're looking for, right? um but I had a moment like that where I didn't have this tool in my belt when it happened, and boy, I looked stupid in front of the community, in front of the board of education, in front of my superintendent. I looked up at him and he gave me a look like, dude, you forgot the first rule about holes. When you're in one, stop digging, because I was just like, I was scrambling when I should have just led with, I don't have that information right now, or because without getting into the details, it was a arithmetic error on the agenda item. And I wasn't the one who wrote the agenda item. It was one of my colleagues. And I wasn't going to throw her under the bus in front of everybody, and then I also didn't want to admit that I didn't know math, although I don't know math. I've always said that publicly. I don't know why I had a problem all of a sudden there. I suck at math, dude. Thank God for calculators. But yeah, I don't know, I'm rambling now, but it was just, it's one of those things where you have to do your best to sell that piece of, hey, I'm bottlenecked and here's why, without throwing someone else under the bus. It's tough. And until you've been there, it's really hard to put this into context in a podcast to try and teach that. I think it's one of those moments you have to live.
You do. Um, I mean, they're like a lot of the stuff that we've talked about. There are ways to approach boundary setting and to think about it. At least ways to start to establish boundaries and remain consistent in what you're doing, knowing that there are going to be times that test, I guess, your resolve in
Hmm.
maintaining those boundaries. And I mean, obviously use your best judgment at the time, but also know it's like, okay, well, was that a one-time thing, or is this going to continue to be an issue now because I let up? Or I mean, the whole point with boundaries is to clarify the expectations and make it healthier for both parties, not create conflict and problems.
So, um, before we get to our closing thoughts, I do want to shamelessly plug our podcast. If you've made it this far, do us a favor, subscribe, share this podcast, whether it's LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, X, or whatever stupid it's called now. Whatever platform you have, do us a favor, help us out, get the word out there for people who are leaders, people who are aspiring leaders. Yeah, we want to get this message out there far and wide. So thank you if you made it this far, especially in this episode and every episode.
Since you're addressing the audience, I guess I
Sure.
will pose one question to everybody, and that's,
Yeah.
I guess, what's one boundary that you need, but haven't necessarily established yet? And if there's anything that we can do to help frame it and help you deliver it, please feel free to reach out, and we'll do our best to help. And please comment or help each
Yeah.
other.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And don't and what's beautiful about the internet is they're not afraid to give us comment and feedback, even if it's negative and or can be perceived as negative. Like there's been some interactions online that have really forced me to think and been like, ah, right, yeah, I haven't really thought about that yet. So yeah, engagement, we love it.
And what are we looking for our next episode?
One of my buddies, his name is Matthew Quinn. He's going to be a guest on, and where we talk about me being the FNG. For those of you who aren't aware, of what FNG. It's the effing new guy. When you're the new guy on the spot and you're you have to show up and be the boss. Yeah, it's fun. Matt's a great dude. He's a funny dude, and it's good. I think it's going to be a great episode.
Can't wait to meet him and tackle that subject. Until next time, leading ain't easy.
But you don't have to do it alone.
Finger guns.
Finger guns. Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in to Leading Ain't Easy. If something in today's episode resonated, please do us a favor and share it with someone else who leads or aspires to lead. Because honestly, none of us have this figured out, but we can all get better together. If you're a leader or professional feeling quietly stuck in your career, visit reframerise.com. It's a career and leadership coaching firm where I work with veterans and other high achievers to realign their work and lead with purpose. Again, that's reframerise.com. And if you're looking for leadership tools, training, or support for your transportation department, check out Bus Pro Network, where Ernie helps school transportation leaders across California build safer, stronger teams. Please subscribe wherever you listen, leave a review, and let us know what topics you'd like us to tackle in the future. And remember, leading ain't easy, but you don't have to do it alone.